All right, so let's get started on creating a really simple HTML file that is controlled by a JavaScript file, right? So let's under here on the user admin, let's create a simple HTML file, and let's call it users.html. And inside that users.html, let's create some really simple HTML just to make sure that we are in the right place. So h1 users. And let's start the server and navigate there with our favorite browser, just not IE. So let's go Chrome, new window, and we'll go localhost 8080, user admin. Okay, that didn't work. Let's see. Users. Okay, there we go. So we're in the right place, right? We're in that file. Perfect. So what we'd like to be able to do is be able to manipulate a list here, right? Presumably there might be some list UL that contains several users, right? So Alice and Bob and Charlie. Right? And perhaps we'd like to be able to edit this list programmatically. Okay, so let's see how we could possibly do that. So what the only way that we can programmatically manipulate this is through the use of JavaScript, right? And to declare scripts in HTML, we use the script tag. Inside of the script tag, you can embed all sorts of programmatic control of the browser. One of the simplest things we could do is just an alert box, right? We can say, hello from JavaScript. Right, if we do that and we refresh, notice that it comes up, it says alert, says hello. So we are programmatically doing that, yes? Now, these scripts could be fairly complex. It might be doing quite a lot of computation, and the browser will execute these scripts and load them, and they might take a while, right? So oftentimes we don't put these scripts at the top of the HTML document because we want to pump content to the users as fast as we can, right? We don't want to waste time, computing anything or whatnot. So oftentimes we move these scripts instead of being up here in the head. We oftentimes put them down here at the end of the body, right? So that we can pump content to the client, to the user as fast as possible. Users are very finicky. If pages take 20, 30, 50 milliseconds longer, they're out of here. They won't wait. So as fast as we can pump content, the faster the better. Even though syntactically this is wrong, the script really should live in the head tag. This is a very common technique, right? To just embed script right at the bottom of the body. Make sense, right? The other thing is that it's considered bad practice to have the script actually embedded inside of your page, right? Having actual code here, right? The better practice is to have a separate file. Just like you have a CSS file and you have everything declared outside, right? Similar here, right? We would declare all our code in a separate file, do all our coding there, and then link it from within our page. Yes. So let's do that. We're going to create a separate file. And in a JavaScript file, we'll call it users.javascript. And in here, we're going to move the code in there. And then from our HTML, the way we link it is by using the source. Source, we can now link it to users.javascript. Make sense? Right? And if we refresh our page, this still works. Right, so we're going to be doing the rest of our coding in this separate file. Yes? All right, so let's head over to that other file and let's take a look at what a really quick introduction to JavaScript. All right, so here we are in a JavaScript file. Let's do a couple of things. Well, not the alert, since that's just going to block our content. We can declare variables. We can say, username is Alice. We can declare. Notice that, Mike. Yes. Ooh, yes. Thank you. Notice that the IDE is complaining that it doesn't understand the keyword let. That's because it's configured to use an older version of JavaScript. So let's change that. Let's go to Preferences. We can go to Languages, JavaScript, and choose the latest version, 6. Let's say OK. And now it's happy. Let is part of the later version of JavaScript. Most browsers will understand this version of JavaScript, although it's not thoroughly supported by all vendors. Right? There are still some differences between the vendors, and that's why we'll use even later more modern ways of making this available to browsers. All right, so we have a username. We can declare other couple of things. We can declare also numbers. So salary, 1, 2, 3. We can declare booleans that Alice is a tenured. So say true. We can also bring together several of these attributes into a single object that might represent Alice, right? We can declare also constants. For instance, maybe faculty, and like constants, right? You can declare their value at declaration time, but then you can't change it later on, right? So we set this faculty constants to be this string. Obviously, you can set any data type on the right hand side. A common naming convention that if it's a constant, typically we use all caps, right? So we also can group together all these properties into a single object that can have name value pair. So we can say let Alice be a JSON object, formatted as a JavaScript object notation. So we can say that the username for Alice is username. Right? Now the name value pair in a JSON object, we have the left hand side is the name of the property, and on the right hand side is the value, right? And the value can either be a literal value, or it could be the value is stored in a variable. Yes, right? Even though the browsers and IDEs are fine with the left hand side writing it just like that, the correct syntax is to use double quotes for the property name, right? So salary, right, for the name of the property would be quoted, right, or double quoted actually, and then the right hand side could be the actual value. Make sense? But again, IDEs and browsers are forgiving, and if you don't use the double quotes for the property names, it's okay, right? They let it pass. So I won't use the double quotation, right? But it's understood that that's the correct syntax. Okay. So let's see what else we have. Tenured. We can use the variable tenure, or we can use a literal value. We can use here role. It might be she's a faculty. There it is. What else? You can embed objects within objects. So you can arbitrarily, the value on the right hand side could be another object, right? Or it could be an array. So you could have objects that contain arrays, that contain objects, that contain arrays. Indefinitely complex as much as you want. These objects like this are referred to as literal objects, right? The Alice variable is being assigned to a literal object. Just like the string is a literal string, right? Characters and whatnot. This is a literal object, as opposed to saying new object. Right? That's not a literal object. That's an instance. You instantiate an object, and then you can assign on the left-hand side. But this instead, it's not being instantiated. It's a literal object. Everybody okay? All right. A couple more things here. We can declare also arrays. You can say users, and users you can declare them with these square brackets, and the array can contain other variables. Alice. So Alice is an object, right? So I'm putting Alice inside of an array, or you can have a little object right inside the array. For instance, maybe some other username, some other username. So this might be Dan, right? And Frank, right? If you have many objects, then usually we put them one for each row, one for each object. Everybody okay? Right. We can add new elements to the array. We can say users. We can push a new object to add things to the array. Right. So we can push this object. Well, the username is ed. Okay. Right. Notice that sometimes, most times, the double quotes and the single quotes are interchangeable. Right, in JavaScript, they're interchangeable. Sometimes you can put double quotes inside of single quotes or single quotes inside of double quotes. Right, as long as you're consistent, right, it's perfectly fine. What else? You can do iteration just like you would in any language. You can do for let u equals 0, u less than users.length, and then u plus plus. And here we can do things such as maybe print out to the console the value of these users. We can say console log. We can print the value of u. Let's do that. And so we can look at the console and see what the JavaScript is doing. By looking at the console and refreshing, it'll run the JavaScript. Notice that we have 0, 1, 2, 3 on the right-hand side. Everybody okay? That's u. We can also print the user. We can say users sub u, right? So that's the objects, right? We have Dan, Frank, Ed, Alice, okay? In a format that you can navigate through the object and see exactly what the object is. You can step through the code. You can look at the source code. Here's users, and you can put breakpoints. You can put breakpoints and refresh, and then step through your code. Right? There's you go step by step, line by line. Right? Put breakpoints on the for loop here. Continue, and then it'll step through, and then you can hover over the object, right? Hover over the variables. Make sure you become familiar with this tool, right? This is going to be one of your main mechanisms for debugging your source code, right? So this will be your new best friend. You can put watch, right? You can look at the current context of all the variables. You can put expressions, everything you would expect in a full-blown IDE. Right? You can even make modifications to the file right here, right? And keep running, right? And there are plugins that allow you to tie your Chrome to your IDE, so that any changes you make here in your browser, right, it affects the original file, which is pretty cool, right? So it's integrated into your development environment. Mine isn't, but you can do that. So and then you can just continue. Right? Any questions so far? There is an alternative syntax for this for loop that you should know. You can rewrite this using the following syntax. You can say let u in users, right? And you can do the same thing. You can do console.log u, right? So be careful, because this is doesn't behave exactly like you would expect in other languages. In other languages, maybe like Java or other higher level languages, u would be the instance, as you iterate over users, right? So u would be user 1, user 2, user 3. It isn't. U is still just an index, 0, 1, 2, 3, unfortunately, right? It's not the actual instance. It's just, again, just the index. Meaning you would treat u the same way. This is just a sugar syntax for this, Okay, it just behaves exactly the same way. Everybody good? Yes. Yeah, there's of. Yeah, we'll take a look at those when we. Yeah, we'll look at of in a bit. When we do React, we'll do of. All right. Obviously, we said we have full-blown use of if statements. We have all sorts of mechanisms to manipulate objects and whatnot, and we'll introduce them as we go and use more advanced features of the language. But as far as we're concerned, this is all we need for today. Any questions? Yes. Var's a little older, and the newer version is let, const, but var is still supported, backwards compatible. Yeah. Oh, also, yeah, we'll talk about functions in a minute. There are also newer versions of how you declare functions, and we'll talk about that in a bit.